Welcome back, everybody, to Dis Media, a startup story, the podcast where we take you behind the scenes of starting a business from the ground up. And today, our guest is going to be talking about starting businesses from the ground up because they've spent more than 3 decades in real estate and in finance. They decided that the traditional broker model needed to disappear. His company is built on a simple but aggressive idea. Instead of recruiting agents, you build AI that recruits customers directly, hands them to brokerages for free, and gets paid on the back end through volume that follows through. He calls it an Un-Brokerage, and he's currently raising capital and courting strategic partners to help take it national. He's founder of the I'm getting tongue-tied here. Intellitary, right?
Yeah,
There we go.
Intellitary.
Founder of Intellitary. Boy, hate it when that happens. Mr. Sheldon Wolf. Sheldon, how are you?
I'm really good, Ben. Thanks for having me. I just have to
Thank
make one
you.
correction. We do not want the brokerages to disappear. We need them. They're our partners. They're strategic partners. We work hand in hand with them. So no, by no means do we want them to disappear. We're kind of opposite. We love AI, we love our technology, but we don't want it to take over the world. We want it to help the world. We want it to help the businesses, help us, help the businesses, and use it as a tool that I believe it should be.
Yeah, as Jerry Maguire said, help us help you.
Exactly.
Hang on, Sheldon. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I'm getting a little feedback of my voice coming through your end. It
Tell
is.
me if that's better. I've got you lowered a little bit.
Yeah. Yes. Still coming through a bit.
Let me,
Yeah.
because I just don't want to be just another pretty face. I need you to hear me. How is that?
You're good. Yeah, that's definitely better.
Perfect. Game
So
on.
I think we were good up until I started following up with a question there. So I'll just edit this part out and I'll start with my question here.
The unplugged version.
The unplugged version. Who knows? Maybe we'll leave this in for fun.
Entertainment. Great. Technology is a good
Awesome.
when it works.
All right. We'll take 3 on the question. So Sheldon, I wanted to ask you, we've had a lot of innovations going on in the real estate game, and everything from Zillow to here recently, the ruling that kind of made, I'm trying to think, it was a buyer commission, something that the buyer has to pay now instead of the seller paying that. And I'm just curious how this strategy that you have of kind of bringing customers into the broker, does it help to address some of that a little bit?
It does and it doesn't. So the change, I see things differently. You have to understand, 3 decades, I've seen brokerages go from literally 1989 until here we are today, where the whole office had one computer, and I personally own better technology than the company I work for and the banks I used to send mortgages to. So I've seen the evolution, but here's what I see today. I see big classic legacy brokerages like the Remaxes of the world getting acquired by fairly new cloud-based brokerages. I see companies like take Fathom, which is what I call a medium-sized, larger national brokerage. They spent the good part of the last few years struggling to stay above $1 on Nasdaq, and then they just got acquired by a company that's not even in real estate. I think Bed Bath and Beyond. I My brain's not working. It might be Bed Bath and Beyond. I'm pretty sure it was, but it was a company that's not particularly in real estate. Just acquired them. I see a lot of change. I see this is writing on the wall, but I see it long before it happens. I saw this years ago, the mergers of different companies becoming so-called super brokerages. And then I see things that what it looks like in 5 years from now. Never mind today. I always say today's problems are already solved by 5 p.m. and they're obsolete by tomorrow, 12 noon. But as far as the brokerage goes, where I see them on the right track, but kind of on the wrong train, they have a theory that if they buy other brokerages, if they aggressively recruit agents, and what they'll do is they'll have ridiculously low fees, so like literally $200 a deal, $275 a deal, and their view is if we have so many thousands of agents working for us, we're just going to be printing money. And the fact of the matter is, if you look at the financials for a lot of these bigger companies, these new cloud-based brokerages, it's not reflective. It's not reflective that a company with 25,000 agents or 14,000 agents shouldn't be losing money if it's done properly. And the idea is the Superman theory. Yes, but once we get more realtors, our losses will become gains, and it doesn't really happen that way. The more agents you get, if you're losing per agent body count, well, it just is reflective. What an agency really needs, what a brokerage needs, is more transactions. That's where, if you're going to have low fees, well, you better have a lot of transactions. Very simple. And the problem that they get themselves is they box themselves into a corner where if they go back to the agents and say, okay, well, I know we lured you over with these really cheap fees, but now we need to make money because we're losing money as a corporation. Well, then you have an exodus of realtors who say, hey, wait a second, that wasn't the deal I signed up for. Or they have these crazy uh, these commission caps where the brokerage stops making money after a realtor does X amount of deals. Well, that doesn't help. That doesn't help a brokerage make money. So what I built was the Un-Brokerage model. We're not interested in recruiting realtors. There's lots of brokerages out there that have the realtors. What we're interested in doing is helping the brokerage make money by increasing their transaction count so that two things happen. The agent is making more money because they're getting more deals, and the brokerage is actually making more money because they're getting more transactions overall, which means they're getting more deal fees. And then, of course, we actually pay our brokerage partners. You'd have to ask yourself and say, what brokerage would not want an extra 50,000 transactions and actually get paid from us? In fact, we pay the brokerage more money than what their own realtors are paying them. So it kind of becomes a no-brainer from that aspect. But we look at ourselves as a cloud-based Un-Brokerage. All we want to do is spend our time doing what we do best, which is harvesting customers and originating transactions, which we then hand off to our brokerage partner. So easiest way to explain it would be is Best Western, the hotel chain, as most people believe, they're not always the owner of the hotel. In fact, most of the time it's independent hotel owners. What they're
Yep.
responsible to do is find and get the customer to the check-in desk of their partner hotels. Then the hotel acts as a hotel, gives them their room, and life goes on. And it becomes that kind of a joint venture, kind of a partnership, kind of a thing. So that's essentially what we do. We want to get the deal, high intent, ready to pretty much put their name on the line and hand it off to our real estate partners, who then finish monetizing it and turn it into a transaction for their office. And that's essentially what we do in long and short.
So real estate has always kind of, got its points where it kind of pulls back. And you mentioned about getting buyers to brokerages. How how do you cultivate those buyers? Where are you finding them? And are they currently represented by an agent, or are you finding them maybe without a buyer's agent currently?
Yeah, we weed through all of that. Our AI systems are pretty elaborate. So going back to my history, because like I said, I've been doing this for forever. So I built the system based around me and my skill set. My skill set was whether someone's going to list their home. Obviously, if the home's unlisted, we'll be able to hand that off to our brokerage for listing. And if they're ready to buy a home, yeah, we're going to have already screened them, qualified them. Easiest way to explain this is, people ask me all the time, explain Intellitary in one sentence. My one sentence is this: if you were to take Zillow, Uber, and Match.com and throw it in a blender with a little bit of tequila, that's what you get with Intellitary. Essentially, we find the customers. How do we find the customers? Well, the average realtor maybe spends $300 a month in advertising. We can afford to spend $1 million a month in advertising. We can get the customers. We're not worried about that. What we do at that point is we qualify them, we screen them, and then we match them with the right agent in the right market, and then we dispatch them almost in a similar way that Uber would dispatch a driver to a person who needs a ride. And it goes to our subscribed agents, and they've already got all the intel. They know exactly who this customer is, what they want, when they want it, where they want it, are they pre-approved, how much are they pre-approved for, all those details that they're going to want as a realtor, all the questions they should be asking, but most realtors fail to ask, and then they drive around a customer who's not qualified or finds out the guy's bankrupt, or all those things. We take all the guesses out of the equation. We get the guy to the point where he's literally wants to book an appointment to see this property at this time, and it literally dispatches them almost identically to how Uber would. But you know that if you're the agent dealing with one of our customers, you already have the intel you need. And that's why it's called Intellitary. So you're getting a qualified customer in most cases, literally ready to buy or ready to list his property. And the main question you'd ask is how do we do it? Well, like I said, the average realtor can afford to spend $300 a month. So if you're, hypothetically speaking, a realtor in Dallas, Texas, you don't have the budget to bring in the customers that we do. And we build the brand exceptionally well. We've got AI literally scrubbing and scraping, constantly fighting to be at the top. We're also a step ahead technology wise in the sense that people don't shop the way they did 3 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. I mean, now we live in a day where a customer wants to press a button. Anyone with a smartphone has AI, let's face it. And they just want to press buttons and just have that service at their fingertips. And that's where we come in. We've got ourselves well distributed on pretty much all the AIs. Any AI that a customer is going to use, they're going to find us, and we're going to be their tool that they use to do their house bidding, so to speak.
You have this as a tool for brokerages for free. You mentioned that, you kind of get paid on the back end of that. So if as you're looking for investors to scale this, um, how does what is that revenue model for investors to know that they're putting their money towards something that is going to net out a pretty good return for them?
Well, if you know anything about any of my previous investments, they're all pretty
which
juicy.
which I don't. Sorry, Sheldon.
They're all super juicy. No, this is all. So, as I said off the air, I wear two hats. One hat is Sheldon, the founder, the guy who builds this, who understands AI explicitly well. He's the guy who spent the last 3 decades between real estate, financing, building fintech, building prop tech. That's where I'm best at home. But before we get to that, I wear an investor's hat. I designed Intellitary backwards. I designed it for the investor and myself as one of the investors. I mean, it got to this point so far. We haven't taken on any third party strategic partners or investors. I haven't taken a dime from anyone. I've funded this thing up to this point. We're well past the seed at this point. But I realized I'd be holding it back if I didn't partner up and get some deeper pockets. I mean, I don't have I have pretty deep pockets, but not deep enough to take this to where it needs to go. But it's designed backwards. So the revenue comes in this way. As I said earlier, there's zero brokerages, national brokerages out there that say, no, we wouldn't want an extra 50,000 transactions in year one. So take that out of the equation because every brokerage wants an extra 50,000. That's where they make their money. And then on top of it, as I said, we pay the brokerage more than their own realtors are paying them. In some cases, they're getting $275 per transaction. And in some cases, maybe they're getting 10%. I mean, I come from an industry back in the olden days where a brokerage got 50% of the commissions that came in from the realtor. So we give back in some cases 10%, some cases $1,000 flat rate, some cases we just double what they're getting from their realtor. It all depends on how many realtors are going to be signing up as subscribers. So we're getting our money from subscriptions is what we're doing, and we're handing it back in transaction fees. So when these become successful transactions, we hand them back to the brokerage. So our goal is to help the brokerage make money. And the reason we do that is because the brokerages have put themselves in this situation over the years where their actual revenue has dropped and dropped and dropped. And in order to stay competitive, they've got to keep their fees cheap. The only one who's really actually organically making more money today, and not a hit against them, because there's a lot of good realtors out there, a lot of good agents, but they're making money not because they got better. They're not making more money because the tools got better. They're making more money because a $300,000 house 5 years ago is now $600,000, and their 5 and 6% commission, well, that's in most cases doubled. So instead of making a $12,000 commission, in some cases they're making a $24,000 commission. That's the easiest way to explain it. They're making more money, and the brokerage is making less money. We're here to fill the void, because what good is a brokerage if they go to business? What good is a brokerage if they get booted off of NASDAQ, and now you've got a whole bunch of agents who are scrambling to rebuild their reputations elsewhere and find a new brokerage and reestablish their client base, all that stuff. So I'm even 5 and 10 years ahead of that. I'm going, well, wait a second. You're talking about today. What does the real estate industry look like in 5 years and 10 years from now? What does it look like in the future? And then you say, well, I'll tell you where I built my business is I'm not interested in today. I always say, and this is my investor hat on. As an investor, the first thing I ask myself is, okay, what does this look like? What does it look like today? And most people build a company to solve today's problems. The problem with that is today's problems are already solved by 5 p.m. for people from people a lot smarter than me, and by tomorrow at 12 noon, it's obsolete. I see a different problem. I see invisible problems. The invisible problem, which is the white elephant in the room, is the customer is behaving differently today than they were 10 years ago, 20 years ago. 20 years ago, they sat down at your kitchen table, the realtor, and they showed you catalogs of homes and printouts with their dot matrix printers and said, okay, you want this house and that house, and here's some black and white photos. I'll book this one for tomorrow, this one for tomorrow, and this one for tomorrow. And you completely relied on your realtor for almost everything. Today, as I said, every single person I know that has a smartphone in their hands can access MLS by themselves, can research what schools they should send their kids to by themselves, can determine the crime rate in a neighborhood, the resale in this neighborhood. Is this a good deal, a bad deal, or all that stuff is now in the control of the consumer. And that's today. Press fast forward, which is where my brain automatically goes. What does this look like in 5 years from now? If it's already here today, do I see a customer writing their own purchase agreement? Well, yeah, that's just field mapping. How much do you want to offer? And it's just field mapping. Purchase price here, offer there, down payment there, condition date here. In fact, I can see so many things, but my point is, I don't want the brokerages. I said right from the get-go, I don't want the brokerages to be obsolete. I actually want to feed the brokerages and make it a sustainable system that's in parity with the future and the technology based on what the customer is doing. This is not about hiring more realtors and more realtors and more realtors and buying more brokerages. That's why I said they're on the right track. They're just on the wrong train. We're building a business around the customer. It's customer centric, to control the customer, to get them past the finish line with our brokerages, with our agents. And that's the guy who controls the future is the guy who has the customer. That's what I say. Whoever has their hand on the customer to say, do this or do that. I believe the customer will still need guidance, human guidance. There could be trust issues either which way in the future. Do people trust AI, or do people trust the agents? Live people or AI? It's going to be the man versus machine, machine versus man argument. That's what I see
Yeah.
in the future.
So there's a couple things. As I kind of hear the landscape that you have there, and I agree with you that AI, it's an innovation, it's changing things. There's a couple things that are kind of all coming together. You mentioned that houses are becoming more expensive, the commissions are getting bigger as a result. However, with things like AI, not only are customers leveraging and leaning into it to be more informed as a buyer. But as a seller, I imagine, they're looking at this and saying, if you've been in your home and you've ridden the equity up, that's one thing. But if you're somebody who's been in a home for less than 3 years and everything's been kind of flat, not really going anywhere, and you're like, maybe you didn't come in with a lot of money down and you don't have a lot of equity, and you now look at the fact that you've got this big invoice to sell your home, maybe you think differently about how you sell it, because who wants to pay these huge fees given the value of the home? And so you've got a couple things going on there. And I'm just wondering, how do you think that is shaping the future of where we're going? Because, buyers, it seems like the millennials kind of didn't buy homes as much as the Gen Zers who are emerging are kind of, bigger property buyers than the
Big
millennials are
gap,
being.
very
So
big gap.
yeah, it's kind of amazing, but I'm just trying to like, how do you reconcile those people who've really maybe bought in the last 3 years, they're looking to move again and don't really have this huge equity, but as I mentioned, the price of the home is kind of chewing into their profit from the home.
Yeah. Well, as I said, I built this mostly with my investor hat on because being the first investor in, I ultimately built it for myself, knowing full well that anybody who's a smart investor will view it exactly the same way I do. So one of the things I did is I built it obviously to monetize the prop tech side of it and also the fintech side. Smart enough to know that if someone's buying a home, they'll probably need a mortgage. In most cases, they do need a mortgage. It's just a fact. They'll also need
Yeah.
home insurance. They'll also need title services. They'll also need all these other things that come, and we monetize all that. So back before all of this, I look at this from a perspective of the agent brokerage side of this is very much a B2B model. It's B2B, it's SaaS. They simply get more customers, end of story, and that's that. But I also built a B2C side of it because I've recognized that problem a long time ago that there are a lot of people in this market that do want to sell their house. They do want to buy something different. Maybe they've had more kids now and they need that extra bedroom. Maybe they need something bigger. For whatever reason, they need to move. Maybe they got relocated. Whatever the reason they need to move, but they can't because they bought the home within the last X amount of years. The market's flatlined in their region, and then they get a penalty on their mortgage for paying it out sooner. And then on top of it, when they bought the home, they had uh, premiums put on the mortgage, and then on top of it, now they've got to pay a 5 or 6% commission, which means that even if they were able to sell and break even, that doesn't give them the down payment for the next property. So it was already a struggle buying the property in the first place. Now they're kind of back to the drawing board, back to renting, or they just simply are owed to buying another home. So yes, I've built in all of that because I think there's a lot of revenue helping people in that situation as well. And as an investor, why would I leave anything on the table if I know there is that whole market segment? And it's not for everyone. A lot of people don't want to be bothered. They just want to line up with a realtor, which we help them with, and move and live happily ever after. But there's a lot of people who've been locked out of selling because of those financial restraints. So we have what I call a uh, more or less market your own home kind of thing using our AI technology. And if at the same time they do need assistance from our realtor partners, they're usually more than glad, especially if they find that, hey, this guy, if I help him, he's going to buy through me. So if the only way to get this guy to sell is by helping him and then he buys through me, well, I'm going to get paid. Ultimately, yes, you're not going to get paid as much, but you're still going to get paid and you're going to get a customer who's going to give you referrals and all these other fun things. So yeah, I built a program that more or less says open your own door because we're going to get the customers to Intellitary anyway. We can send a pre-screened qualified customer over. And even if it's through one of our realtor partners, either which way, we can monetize that. So the whole monetization process, Intellitary is built is kind of a beast. It's what does an investor like about it? Well, they'll know one thing about me. I don't leave anything on the table. I would never
Yeah,
butcher a
it doesn't sound
cow.
like it.
I would never butcher a cow so I can say, hey, let's have a steak tonight. No, we're going to absolutely get everything out of this as possible. We're going to create as many happy, thrilled customers as possible, happy, thrilled agents as possible, and happy, thrilled brokerages that are getting a whole brand new stream of revenue into their door that they simply didn't have before. And the biggest thing is that you got to look at and say, well, if we're taking 50,000 transactions and running it through our processor, so to speak, and we're giving it to brokerage ABC, you just have to know that brokerage DEF is simply not getting those 50,000 transactions. So the benefactor is the brokerage that partners with us.
When you're talking to people who are looking at this platform for investing, because I think one of the things that you've smartly done is applied AI in a way to kind of close the gap on a lot of things, and maybe even those revenue opportunities that sometimes get left on the table. You've got agents out there. When I say agents, I mean the AI kind of out there making sure that you capitalize on more of that opportunity for revenue. Given all that, with the brokerages that you've worked with and the people that you've been using this platform with, are they seeing an increase in the value from this system for them?
It's the workflows that are built into this. I cannot even tell you how many thousands of hours I've spent building this. Literally, I locked myself in a room with a few of my tech guys, and literally, it is so robust, so many layers deep, so many different. I mean, we built it literally as enterprise technology so that it could be built out in so many ways, and it is so deep, and the workflows don't miss a beat. Everything talks to everything. So when you go to Intellitary, you're going to notice one thing different, and here's the primary thing about where we differ. So back to the investor's hat. I built this so it monetizes as much of the traffic as possible. So let's take insert competitor, anything you want. Could be Zillow, could be whoever, whatever. Typically it works this way. I'm not saying this is their stats because I don't know their stats, but I'm guessing that they're like most stats that people know if you're in my industry. When you get 100 people to your website, typically you get 2 to 3% that will actually fill out that form. They'll find that form on your website. Yes, I need more help. Fill out the form. Everything else is what I call a bounce or see you later. They're on your website for a minute, then they're gone, and maybe they come back, maybe they don't. But the immediate number is usually 2 to 3%. So let's just say they're in the leads business. They got 2 to 3 leads off of every 100 people they drag to the website. They send it off to the realtors, and maybe the realtor has to go through 60 leads to get one customer that actually turns into a deal. Let's just say those are the number. Here's what I built differently, because like I said, I went deep on this. This is it's almost insane the amount of work that I put into this. But when you go to Intellitary, you're going to notice Chloe AI, which is named after my Chihuahua. She jumps out at you. She talks to absolutely every single person who goes to the website. She jumps out at you and starts asking you. She welcomes you, and then she starts asking you questions, almost as if I bumped into you and said, "Hey, um, I understand you're looking for a home, or I understand you're looking to sell a home, depending on what page you got to," and starts asking the right questions. She gets enough of your attention. She then says, "Hey, I just noticed you didn't register." Gets you to register, pops up a thing for you to register, or she'll ask you the questions. "Hey, just let me get some information. I'm going to set you up as a client." Then from there, she disappears off your screen, and your phone rings. And Chloe then talks to you on your phone, says, "Hey, I'm glad I got you on the phone. I was just chatting with you on Intellitary," and starts asking you more questions, which of course she's pre-qualifying you. She's screening you to see how serious you are. Are you looking to buy now? When are you looking to buy in the future? Do you have to sell your home first? Have you been pre-approved? She's now going to set you up with either one of our mortgage agents or one of our realtors, depending on what stage you're at. If you're looking to list your home, she's probably going to book an appointment. But now that she has you on the phone, she's able to now hot transfer your call right to one of our agents. And that's where you go from being a great $1 million idea to $1 billion. If you could take a customer, pre-screen them all in one full swoop, pre-screen them, pre-qualify them, and then take them and literally hot transfer them right to an agent who could then either A, meet them, show them, list them, do all those fun things that they need to do to make their commission, that is priceless. If I'm a realtor right now and I know maybe 2, 3 times a day my phone's going to ring, and it's me, a customer being transferred to me, ready to buy, ready to list, I'm sorry, but that's golden. That's golden. When you talk about a guy who used to get paid sometimes $3 million a year to play in the real estate game that I used to play, that's how I did it. I mean, this whole Intellitary is just a revamp of a conveyor belt system that made me millions of dollars. And I'm giving this to the industry so that all these realtors that are in the maybe they're not monetizing, the brokerage is not making a lot of money off them, they're not doing well, they're struggling to find customers, and I'm simply just handing them customers left, right, and center. That's priceless. That's priceless to the industry, it's priceless to the brokerage, and priceless to the agents.
A couple questions as I think about that. Number one, has anybody in that intake process, because you're moving from being on a website and then you're getting a phone call, and I imagine the agent who's initially reaching out, it's probably an AI agent that's still asking you a question. Have you had any experience where people don't like that because they don't like
Yeah,
talking to a machine?
yeah, they're welcome to that as well. What the difference where I'm going with this whole thing is when you start with what I said originally, that most websites, real estate websites, for every 100 people that go, get 1 to 2%, maybe 3% at best.
Yeah.
We're talking about a 60 to 70%. Sometimes when we tested, we got up to 80% that did talk to Chloe AI and did give out their information and did set themselves up. So the difference when you're talking about cost per customer acquisition of 2 to 3% versus even as low as 60% or 70%, that's a heck of a lot more customers buying into our system than you start factoring, well, how much did you spend in advertising? Well, how much does it cost you per customer? All those factors. And then you start saying, well, let's go now to the next level. Let's focus on if a realtor is subscribed, we want to give them as much business as possible. We want them to be successful. We want to be the engine. We just want to cultivate consumers, build transactions ready to go, high intent transactions ready to go, and hand them off. So the more successful they're going to be, the more successful we're going to be, the more successful the brokerage is going to be. So it's win for everyone, including the customer. And then you look and say, from the aspect of the customer, once again, I'm not here today. We may be doing a podcast today, but trust me when I tell you, I'm already 5 years down the road. A question that gets asked to me all the time by really smart people is, but I see a problem. I see people not trusting AI and trusting human. So let's talk about real estate. My AI does not have a vested interest. My AI is not about to make a $20,000 commission. If you ask it a question, it's going to give you the real, honest, fair answer. An agent,
Yeah.
I'm not saying this is a slap against any one realtor in particular, but let's get real. Let's talk about someone buying a more expensive home and there's a $90,000 commission. I'm going to say that, typically you're going to get a little bit of bias. The realtor does not want you back in the car looking at another 30 properties. If they think you like the property, they're going to push you and they're going to say, oh, and we better hurry up. And we got 3 more offers coming in on it. We better right now. They're going to give you all that. AI is not going to do that. So as far as trust, maybe today that's the question, but I'm not here today. I'm 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road. I understand consumer behavior. I understand what they're doing. People are falling in love with AI, literally, and I mean that literally. They're having relationships that are, so I do believe that trust in the future, people, if anything, may even trust AI more than humans. And like I said, it's not a knock against realtors, because there's a lot of excellent realtors who
Sure. Sure.
don't put their commissions ahead of the customer and give good, honest advice all the time. But I'm just saying that there is a perception in the industry that a lot of times a realtor could potentially be swayed by the amount of commission they're going to make on a deal. Does that happen all
You
the time?
know,
No, I didn't. I never really cared. I mean, there was a time where to get an appointment with me was a 3 month wait just to get an appointment with me. So I dealt mainly with investors back then, but notwithstanding, I mean, still most people knew that, you know, they're going to get a good deal on whatever they get from me. End of story. They didn't not trust that. But as far as AI goes, I don't know. It'd be an interesting tug of war to see who wins the trust game. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I think the opportunity here for when we think of how much information is out there in the public. So what I'm thinking of is, as of the recording of this, all the rage is talking about data centers and how close neighborhoods could be to potential data centers and where are they going to be built and this, that, and the other. And I think with big data, with AI, you have this opportunity to feed into a system like this, like local city council meetings, like what's been approved in the area, what are the expansion plans in the area, outside of some of those surface things that around schools and crime and things like that. But to really kind of know the community and know what's kind of on the docket for expansion. Oftentimes I know realtors try to keep up with that stuff, but the reality is that, counties and cities are having meetings all the time,
For
but
sure.
they're public information forums, right? So there's an opportunity to kind of glean that stuff. But one of the things I was thinking about as you were talking about this is when you have a when you have a lot of agents using this, and earlier you were talking about you have about 60% of people who engage with the agent, which is great. I mean, that's a fantastic number. But I'm curious. Usually, there's about a 2 to 3% conversion once people land on the website. Do you see a higher than average conversion once they hit the website? And then I'm not sure of what you were saying, if that's the pass off from the website to the agent who calls, or if it's from the initial engagement when somebody first lands on the website.
Um, I built it, like I said, based on my own personal system, my own conveyor belt that I used in the 90s even. Um, it was designed to, first of all, capture and cultivate the customer, but I rarely lost a customer. If you were meeting with me and you were put in front of me at my desk, 99% you were buying. Very simple. If you were here to sell your property, 99% you were selling your property. Our screening process is vigorous. I don't want our subscribed agents running around with a customer who really is just a tire kicker, has no intention of really buying. He's not serious. It was designed exactly how Sheldon would handle a customer, which I'd say was down to perfection. If the customer was in front of me, and that's how I trained Chloe AI. Chloe AI is meticulous. She's not afraid to ask a question because it might be too personally or this and that. She doesn't project, and what if the client says this and I don't want it to be awkward? No, she asks the questions that need to be asked because, as I said, I don't want my agents running around for 3 weeks only to find out this guy's bankrupt and can't even get a mortgage or doesn't really plan on buying anytime in the near future. So she asks the questions. Her first question, in fact, is how soon? People say, well, why is that the first? Well, how soon is the most important question you're going to ask a customer? How soon are you thinking of moving? And then the customer says, well, yeah, well, I got to do this and this first and that and that. Probably not till next year sometime. Well, I don't want my realtors driving around a guy who's not really serious, looking at homes that are on the market today that won't be on the market in 6 months from now, 8 months from now, 2 years from now. It's silly and it's a waste of time. But I can tell you, I can write a book on how realtors waste their own time. I can. That's a separate topic altogether in a separate podcast. But that's one of the things about realtors that they do. They drive around customers that have no intentions of buying. I only want to hand off people that are almost transaction ready. The guy specifically says, yes, I need to buy a house. There's a difference between I want to buy a house, I need to buy a house. There's all these things that I take into consideration. But I had a system that said if you were put in front of Sheldon, you got to be prepared to write a deal. And every single person that would sit in front of me was prepared to write a deal. And I already knew ahead of time that they could buy a deal, they could buy the house, they will sell the house because we did our proper screening. And that's essentially what I built into this. Now, what makes Chloe AI better than Sheldon? Because I was pretty darn good. I shot literally almost 100%. What makes her better than me is I can only talk to one person at one time. You and I are having this podcast. I'm talking to you. I'm not having two more podcasts, three more podcasts. Chloe can talk to 20,000 people at one time. have 20,000 unique individual conversations, interactions, and pass off 20,000 different customers to different agents all across the map. And that's what she can do, and I can't do that. But each conversation is engaging and perfect. Perfect to screen, perfect to qualify, and then she matches, dispatches, all meticulously. Nothing falls through the cracks. Um, and like I said, we've built it in year one to do 50,000 transactions. And if you know anything about me, I purposely say that, but it's one of those, how you say, overperform. And I like to show off. So if I say 50, it really means probably 60. And then year two, my brain says, okay, how do we double that? How do we and like I said, I don't really look at anyone as competition. I just look at them as strategic partners. I never got into the saying, well, we want to be competition for all the brokerages out there. We want to take deals away from. No, I actually want to feed that industry. And that's what makes us unique. To me, they're strategic partners. Because believe it or not, Chloe was originally, Intellitary was originally bought, but was originally built to be autonomous. My original idea was, how do I make this autonomous, and just let people show their own homes and let people do all that and work it backwards. And then we'll just do what other companies do and sell off leads and stuff. But I thought, well, no, what's it had to be autonomous, but how do I make it so it's not? Well, the bottom line is the problem I have today is Chloe is great. She's a great talker. She's got the ability to sell you, give you any info you need, be your perfect concierge, but she doesn't have legs yet. So she can't really do anything. And that's where the Uber idea came in. I said, well, what if I can get her dispatch a serious customer, someone that Sheldon would personally meet at a property and gladly sell them a house because I already know they're serious. I already know they want to buy this house or already want to, they like this house, they're buying it. End of story. And that's where I came up with the dispatch system. What if I dispatch this customer to people who just happen to be able to meet this customer at 3 p.m., 4 p.m., 5 p.m., and they just press their button, boom, now they've got a customer, their appointment's set, the realtor knows who they're meeting, the customer knows which realtor they're meeting, and that's how we built the system. I thought, well, that's her legs, that's Chloe's legs. All these realtors, so the real estate industry works this way, and here's the stuff that unless you're in the industry, you don't really know this, but they call it the 90-10 rule. 90% of the realtors make 10% of the money, 10% of the realtors make 90% of the money. So you have a whole body of these agents that struggle to get customers. And when they get customers, they fumble the ball and they don't get it past the finish line and they don't close the deal. And everybody does know this part. If a realtor doesn't close the deal, they make $0. If I could put the ball in their hand and all they have to do is get it past the goal line, they're making money. So that's how you monetize agents that the brokerage is not monetizing. Every brokerage has a bunch of really good star agents in their each office, and then most of them are just okay, they're average. But the industry average in a lot of these larger companies, believe it or not, is only 3 transactions a year per agent. So when you factor that, say, why is that? And the real answer is A, because they don't have enough customers. Well, what's Intellitary about? It's an Un-Brokerage. We're in the customer business. We just want to harvest and originate the customer, hand it off to our licensed agents, and let them get it past the finish line. And that was really the model for building out that machine.
That is pretty amazing. I mean, it sounds like a very well-tuned system. I always like to ask as we kind of head towards wrap up here, as you think about this, and it sounds like you have a very active mind. You're already kind of thinking, 5 years ahead in what things look like. Considering what you have on the table right now and looking ahead to some things in the future, what's the one thing that is really getting you most excited to get up in the morning and get to work?
I like innovating. I'm never ever satisfied. Like I said, if we punch out 50,000 transactions in year one, I'm right back to the dashboard saying, okay, how do we double? How do we get more market share? How do we eat more into this? How do we eat more into that? How do I make her better? And technology is moving so fast. And you never want to be the one complaining about technology. I find real estate industry's famous for complaining a lot. They don't like new technology. Oh, we just got this last year or 2 years ago. Well, whatever you got 2 years ago is obsolete today. Oh, well, we just invested in this, and oh, this new thing, the realtors won't like it. And I always say, if you don't run with technology, you're going to get run over by technology. So one of the things about me, I'm kind of the opposite. I always like to be 3 steps ahead, 5 steps ahead. I already see the bubble where it's going to be, and it's like I said, there's all these companies out with using AI. It's the new buzzword, AI this, AI that. We're building this to solve this problem, but it's all problems that are either already solved and they're just copying someone else's game. And the problem is that technology by tomorrow at 12 noon, we'll have the same conversation. So yeah, well, there's now another 1,000 companies doing the exact same thing. And now they have to all fight over the same market share. And from an investor perspective, I'll put my investor hat back on. Well, if I just outlaid $20 million for this company, now there's 1,000 other companies doing the exact same thing. It's going to be just another one of those. I call it space junk. It's AI space junk. And that's what, when you hear about, oh, the bubble's going to happen and it's going to hit the wall. Well, that's because they're busy trying to play on this side of the wall. You need to be on the other side of the wall. One thing that has changed, and I can't focus on it enough, and nobody's picking up on it, it's the invisible problems. And it's the invisible problems that I turn into profit. It's the customer behavior. It's the customer who presses a button on Amazon, orders whatever it is they ordered. By the time they press the button, they're already running to the front door, complaining, how come my product's not here yet? I just pressed the button. And that was never a thing in the past. But when it comes to real estate, like I said, tell me what person doesn't have AI on their phone now. Tell me what person is not going to use it for absolutely every decision. I own a whole slew of real estate. That's another hat I wear. It's a different hat. We're not going to talk about that. But I own a whole whack of real estate. That's what I've kind of built a small little mini empire. But I have tenants that when they first started being our tenants, they were lucky. They'd send us an email and they couldn't string a sentence together. Now it sounds like some high-end lawyers just sent us this letter asking for, something ridiculous. And
Yeah.
that's the fact. The dumbest of the dumbest people now have AI, and they've gotten a little smarter, but sometimes a little dumber because they think they can rely on this and that. But notwithstanding, when it comes to shopping, if someone has the option, and this is in the future past the 5 year mark, more into the 10 year mark, if someone has the option of getting out of paying a 20, 30, $40,000 commission and doing something themselves, that they're fairly articulate, they're fairly intelligent, they're fairly confident in their AI and their skill, they could probably do it. Because really, at the end of the day, I could build just about anything that encapsulates a transaction, whether it be the listing, putting something up online. I mean, everything to me, the entire world to me is just a bunch of field mapping and data, and it's scary the way I see it. But after you spend so much time working on AI and workflows and this, to me, everything is just field mapping and data.
I tell people
Open
all
to
the
the
time,
conversation now.
it's
Our
everything is math. It's all just math.
Yeah, we're being transcribed right now. It's becoming data somewhere, and really it'll field map in somewhere at some point and automatic. That's how technology is. But as far as
That
being
is.
a consumer, that's what's changing. He who controls the consumer is the guy who survives, and that's why we built the Unbrokerage.
Man, well, Sheldon, I have to say, it sounds real. I'm not in real estate. However, I think if I was, I would be very, very interested in this. It sounds like an amazing tool, well thought out, well put together. Where do people find Intellitary and get in touch with you?
If you want to play on Intellitary, best thing is go to intellitary.com, Intellitary.com. And if you want to get in touch with me, it's Sheldon, Sheldon, at intellitary.com. Once again, Intellitary is Intellitary.com. And like I said, Chloe's a lot of fun to play with. So feel free to visit the website. She is, in my belief, today's future of real estate. And and I hope everyone enjoys.
Well, Sheldon, thank you so much for sharing. Sounds pretty awesome. Folks, I want to remind you guys that we are on a mission to hit 100,000 subs on YouTube by the end of 2026. We are just, as of the recording of this episode, about to hit 50,000. So, we're a little bit behind. So it's important. Go out there, tell your friends, tell your neighbors. Most importantly, you hear me say it all the time, tell your enemies, because those are the people who take actions on your words. By the way, also, if you're out there surfing the internet, maybe you're talking to Chloe, pop open another window. Go to benolmos.com, which is my website. You can download the first chapter of my book, 10 Topics to Help Managers, Leaders, and Entrepreneurs Get Better at What You Do. Absolutely free. And then if you like it, tell Chloe, and then maybe she'll buy it for you. No, I don't think that's built in. But anyway, it would be nice. Feel free to pick up the rest of the book at either Amazon or Barnes & Noble. But thank you guys for checking out this episode. I appreciate it. And that's all for this one. We'll see you next time. Have a good one. Thanks for listening to Disc Media, A Startup Story. This podcast was produced and edited by Ben Olmos and is a production of Disc Media Corporation. If you're interested in learning more about anything you heard on this episode, please reach out to us at podcast@discmedia.com. You can also get more information about this and other episodes or information about our guests by checking out dailypitch.news, our business and insights publication focused on helping managers, leaders, and entrepreneurs get better at what they do.